Today I'm going to be going over how to clean the H&K USP 45 and magazine. You're going to need some cleaning swabs, brushes, barrel brush, solvent, lubricant, and a single bullet. This is my work area. I'll be going over the Dillon blue press in a future video. Just make sure the firearm's unloaded and magazines and ammunition set aside. To take down the firearm, press in on the pin on the right side of the firearm to remove the slide release on the other side. You gotta line up the frame and the slide. The slide comes right off, then remove the guide rod and spring, remove the barrel. First thing I do is a once over with a paper towel. It gets rid of all the grime and residue from just using the firearm. It's cheap, it's easy, and any lint that's left over will be removed later. Any thick deposits of carbon residue, say on the barrel, should really be taken care of right now. It's much easier than doing it later with a brush. You don't have to be overly thorough right now. All the nooks and crannies will really get taken care of later with the solvent. There's a lot of different solvents out there. The majority of people probably use Hops number 9. I prefer Impro 7. It smells a lot better. Actually doesn't smell at all. And it seems to clean at least as good, if not better. It's also compatible with ultrasonic cleaners if you really get into hardcore cleaning. Apply a healthy dose of solvent across the entire firearm. Let it sit for a few seconds. It'll help the cleaning process later on. Next, you want to scrub the entire firearm. There's a couple different kinds of brushes to do this. First, brass. It's much more abrasive and helps clean away buildup. On many firearms, you only want to use the brass brush on internal components, as the abrasiveness can remove certain finishes, causing an increased likelihood of oxidation. But the brass brush is very good at removing stubborn deposits, and the one I use even has a slimline brush on the opposite side for the tight areas of the gun. The problem with the finish isn't an issue with H&K, but it is good to get into the habit of using two different brushes. So for the external side of the slide, I will use the second type of brush, vinyl. Carbon buildup isn't normally a problem on the outside of a gun. Unburnt powder and dirt are the most common culprits. Next, I put another light layer of solvent on the gun, and then go over the entire thing with lint-free swabs. This is when you want to be the most thorough. It's the last real cleaning that you're going to give the gun before you oil it and put it back together. Next, making sure that there's still solvent in the barrel. Scrub out the barrel with a barrel brush. Again, I like using the brass brush, but there is also a vinyl version. The last thing before assembling is lubrication. I use a couple different types of lubricant. The most common is Rem Oil. It goes on wet and evaporates into a dry lubricant. This is good for frequent use, as dry lubricants don't attract as much dirt. The problem with dry lubricants is they don't protect against water as well as wet lubricants. As a general rule, I don't use Rem Oil unless I plan on using the firearm in the next week. Ballistol was recommended to me by a friend. It works great and doesn't dry out. It's perfect for storing your firearms for a couple weeks to a few months. I apply the lubricant to anywhere that has obvious wear and tear. For a newer gun, this may be more difficult to determine, but slide rails, the barrel, and guide rod are good places to start. As I oil the firearm, I reassemble it. This prevents oil from wiping off onto the paper towel. If you ever apply too much oil, just wipe it off with a lint-free swab. Be sure not to apply oil to the face or front of the bolt. Oil, especially the wet lubricant variant, getting into the firing pin housing can be bad news. Dirt and carbon buildup is attracted to the oil, and too much on the firing pin can reduce its effectiveness. Once the firearm is fully assembled, I do one last rub down, getting rid of any excess oil that may be oozing from anywhere. This is indications that you've put too much oil in these locations. Now we are going to disassemble a magazine. Use a bullet to depress the button on the bottom of the magazine, then squeeze the tabs and pull the magazine floor plate out. Remove the floor plate catch, spring, and follower. Apply solvent and scrub the magazine just as we did the firearm. Then wipe it down with a lint-free swab and reassemble. One end of the spring has a slight angle. This attaches to the follower. Insert it into the magazine housing. Attach the catch. The catch will hold up inside the magazine by itself. Put in the floor plate. Make sure the tabs are in place. You'll notice that there's no button on the bottom. You have to depress the follower for the button to lock into place. There you go. Simple magazine functionality test. Press the follower, make sure it comes back up, insert it into the gun, make sure that the slide locks back when it's empty. There's too many things to go wrong in a firearm to do a full functionality test, but the easiest thing to test is the firing pin. Insert a pencil or a ballpoint pin into the barrel of an empty gun and pull the trigger. It should come flying out. Hope this was useful. I should be coming out with more boringly narrated videos in the future.